Get my 6. What's up, everybody? Hope you're staying warm where you are. 2 days left in September, and I'm starting to rock the fleece pullovers out here because the humidity's gone. It's not that it's cold, it's in the upper 60s, which is nice, but that summer Virginia humidity's moved out, so it feels a bit nippy. 2 days left in September means there's only 2 days until we are in the month of October, the super duper creepy, most funnest month of the year. But I figured, why wait 2 days to tell a creepy story? Doesn't keep me from telling creepy stories in July and August and May, does it? So I'll just tell one here with 2 days to go in September. It's fresh in my mind because I just heard it yesterday while I was in Jamestown, birthplace of America, the original colonial settlement from 1607. It wasn't a ghost story about Jamestown or a story that even took place in Jamestown. It's a creepy story that was passed on to me by an old man sitting on a bench outside of the gift shop there at Jamestown. Here's the situation. I hate gift shops. I hate any... I can't go into places where there's just stuff everywhere, like antique shops, stores that are just cluttered with crap, because, I don't say that like in a a lot of stuff. I become like overwhelmed. It's part of my hypervigilance thing associated with my PTSD. It's like there's all these things to look at, and I can't focus on any particular thing because I'm distracted by it all. And often it'll lead to an anxiety attack, and I just have to leave anyway. So I usually just don't go in those places. There's never anything in there certainly that I don't need. I never find anything I want. So I just save the money, and I save the time, and I save the anxiety by staying outside. It's what I did yesterday there at Jamestown. My beautiful bride, Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, and our son went in to look around the gift shop, and I meant to bring it up. Dearly likes to buy refrigerator magnets whenever we go travel and we visit places, so our refrigerator's filling up with magnets from all the places she's visited. And she got one yesterday at Jamestown that has the 3 ships that brought over the original colonists, and the one in the middle moves. It's really neat. So now when I go to the refrigerator, I find myself sliding that boat on the Susan Constant, I think was the name of that ship. So anyway, I'm sitting outside outside of the gift shop, at least in the lobby of the Jamestown Visitor Center. Dearly and Daniel go in there. Daniel, bless his heart, most kids, they want to buy something everywhere they go. He never does. He looks around, but he always comes out, and I'm like, you find anything you want to buy? And he goes, no, it's just all overpriced junk. 10 years old. All right, cha-ching. He's already got that mindset. Doesn't go in there wasting money. So I'm sitting there on a bench while they're in the store, and there's an older man sitting beside me. He was sitting there already. I actually sat beside him. He was on the next bench over. He was probably late 60s, almost 70. This goes to show you how small of a world it is. We start talking, small talk. His wife was in the gift shop also, and he didn't want to go in there. It turns out he also lives, him and his wife, in the Charlottesville area, here really close to us. And he's mentioned that him and his wife had come down from Charlottesville to go to Jamestown. And I said, well, that's kind of our situation too. We live in Albemarle County. We came to go to Hollow Scream at Busch Gardens last night or the night before. This happened yesterday. But they were closed because they're only open Thursday through Sunday. So we figured, well, if we're down here, we got a hotel room for the night. We may as well just stay and visit Jamestown, because my wife and son had never seen Jamestown until yesterday. And I talked about how my wife was from the Philippines and my son was born there. And so this was a real treat for them to get their first visit to where it all started, Jamestown. And he asked where I was from originally, and I mentioned I grew up in Appalachistan. He goes, oh, the semi-autonomous region, culturally and economically and language even, that encompasses West Virginia, Southwest Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, down through parts of the Carolinas, Georgia, down into the deep South, and of course up a bit. And you've got the Appalachian Mountains, but not all of it's Appalachian. It's that economically repressed area that I refer to as Appalachian. And he got it. He says, well, which part of Appalachian are you from? I said, well, I'm from a region called West by God, Virginia. That's the part of Appalachian I'm from. And he says, it really is a small world, because we're talking about that, like I mentioned, both of us being from Albemarle County. He says, I've spent my whole life in Charlottesville, except for the 6 years he went to Marshall University, which is in West by God, Virginia. Huntington, West by God, Virginia. The Thundering Herd, for those of you who are familiar with the university, good college, and they often have good football teams, So he asked me what it was I do. He says, you look like you're still, working age man. You're obviously, your son obviously is school age. What kind of work do you do? And I said, well, I'm a writer. And so that allows me to kind of come and go as I please. And he asked what I write. And I said fiction. And I always like to just leave it at that. But he pressed me. He kept saying, what kind of fiction? And I said, well, I've not pigeonholed myself into one particular genre, because I haven't. I mean, The Box is a romance novel, and it's available in print with my autograph from our Etsy store. The link is in the description box below. So, but I did mention that I also have had success writing about the paranormal, some psychological thriller stuff like Off Switch, another great one. Guess where you can get it? Just saying. And I mentioned, write about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, cryptids, and I mentioned the Halloween Nights or October Nights short story collection. And he says, so do you believe in that hocus pocus? That's how he says it. Do you believe in that hocus pocus? I said, well, sir, I'll tell you this. I've seen enough things in life that I couldn't really explain and that I never really understood, to where I'm not going to come right out and say that I do believe in these things, but I will come out and say I'm not a non-believer. I'm not a disbeliever. There are folks who address these topics: paranormal, the supernatural, the cryptids, the cryptozoology, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, these type of things. There are people who are convinced one way or another, and you can find them on YouTube. I've never taken sides, and it's not because I'm playing both sides from the middle. I have seen, and many of you folks have seen or heard or witnessed things on these videos that are simply unexplainable. And then, of course, I've seen and experienced things that are unexplainable numerous times when there's no cameras, years before I ever even started doing social media. And so I pretty much left it with the guy. I said, I'm open to suggestion. If somebody tells me a story about their experience with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or with the ghost, I'm not going to call them a liar. I'm not going to say, I believe every word of it, because you see, but I entertain the stories, and I've come to believe that pretty much anything is possible. And he said, well, a man that thinks the way you do might find interest in a story that I've got for you. He says it's something that happened, I guess it was 40-ish years ago. He says it's something that he's probably close to 70 now. He was in college in the late 70s, 78, 79, 80. I think this thing happened around 1980. So you figure if he was early 20s in 1980, it's 40 some years ago. So he'd be in his 60s, I guess, early to mid 60s. He said there's never been an entire year pass in his life when these events that happened comes to his mind, and he's never been able to figure it out. He's told many people about it, and no one's ever accused him of being a liar. No one's ever told him he's crazy. And he wanted to share his story with me just to get my take on it. And I said, well, I'm open ears. I'm all ears. Let me hear it. So he went on to explain about how he and a cousin of his, that was a year or two within his age, there was a female, a woman, went to, like I said, Marshall University in Huntington. They would come home, not every weekend, but every other weekend, because that's probably a 6-hour drive from Charlottesville to Huntington, and of course from Huntington to Charlottesville. He didn't have a car, but his cousin did. And so They didn't really see each other that much on campus because they had different social circles. They had different things going on. But they did stay in touch. And anytime she was going to be coming back to Charlottesville for the weekend or for a holiday like Thanksgiving break or whatnot, they would always get together and she would ask if he wanted a ride. Sometimes he would stay there behind at Marshall and hang out with his friends, enjoy the weekend there, maybe go to those football games. But every other time at least he'd come back to Charlottesville with his cousin. Well, he said it was about a year or two after they opened for use the New River Gorge, which at one point was the world's longest arch bridge. I think China built one a few years back that beat it. Like they did that giant dam to beat the Hoover Dam. It's like China went out and found everything we had that was number one in the world and, started building things to one-up us. And that's a true story. So they built a bridge several years back that I guess made the New River Gorge the number 2 world's longest arch bridge. But if you've never seen it, it's worth looking for some videos here on YouTube to see it. They have Bridge Day in October. People base jump off of it with parachutes. People bungee cord off of it. I think there's been like 4 people die doing that since it opened. However, there's been a lot of people who have taken their own lives by jumping off the bridge. And that's what this story entails in a very odd way. So it was a couple of years after the New River Gorge had just been open for use. He and his cousin are going across the New River Gorge on a Sunday, late afternoon, early evening. It was in the fall, right around this time of year. Going across the bridge, and they get out in the middle, and the guy looks over and he sees a man about his age standing on the side of the bridge. He said he remembers it like it was yesterday. The man was wearing black denim jeans and a black denim jacket and just a plain white shirt. He had black hair. He wasn't wearing a hat. Looked like, a holdover from the 1950s. And he noticed there was no car on the bridge. There was just the guy. So they drive by, and he looks over at his cousin after they pass this guy, and he asks her, he says, "Did you see that guy on the side of the bridge?" And she says, "No, I didn't see a guy on the side of the bridge." And she looks in her rearview mirror, and the guy says he distinctly remembers his cousin taking the rearview mirror, moving around, seeing no one. He looked back. Back then they didn't even wear seatbelts. He didn't even have to take his seatbelt off. He looked back, and sure enough, the guy was not there. Wasn't there. Well, he never thought anything more about it until it was almost Halloween. It's almost a month later, late October. People were dressing up on campus, going around, having their Halloween parties or whatever. Well, he goes to a Halloween party, and this guy walks into the party that looked identical to the guy he saw on the bridge. And he was dressed identically as well. He was wearing black jeans, black denim jacket, and he had on a white t-shirt, and he had long black hair. So he approached the guy, and he introduced himself. "Hey, my name's so-and-so," and the guy told him his name. He says, "This is kind of an odd question, but I got to ask you this." He says, "About a month or so ago, my cousin and I were coming back to campus here in Huntington. We live over in Charlottesville, Virginia. We were crossing the New River Gorge, and I could have sworn I saw you standing in the middle of the bridge, looking over the bridge. Was that you?" And the guy said, "No." He says, "I'm actually from Huntington. I know all about the bridge. I've been meaning to go see it, but I haven't." He says, "I've never even been to the New River Gorge. I intend to go. I hope to go. I plan to go. Never been there." So the guy says, "Well, okay, must have been someone that looked a lot like you, but I could have sworn I saw somebody that looked just like you standing on the bridge." They spoke small talk for a little more. They both went their separate ways, and the guy didn't think anything else about it until, I guess it would have been about a couple months later. This guy who lives in Charlottesville, older man now, and his cousin had gone home a couple of weeks before Christmas break. They were going back to Marshall. This would be their last trip back before they would again return to Charlottesville to stay for the break between semesters. Not only did the guy see an apparition, and that's how he said it. He says, I don't know. He says it couldn't have been a ghost because the guy wasn't dead. It was kind of like a hologram, which didn't exist back then. So he felt he was seeing like some sort of apparition or astral projection of sorts. But this time when he saw it, the guy actually jumped off the bridge. Okay, so the guy screamed, told his cousin to stop the car. He got out of the car on the New River Gorge, which is not legal, and looked down over the side, and he saw nothing. So his cousin had put the car in park. She comes out, she's like, what are you doing? We got to get off this bridge. Somebody's going to run over us in another car. We're going to get killed. You know, state troopers come by. We're going to get arrested. We can't do this. And he's looking. He says, oh my God. He said, I saw that guy and he jumped. And so his cousin is looking over the side of the bridge. She's seeing nothing. And he says he's seeing nothing either. There clearly is no guy there. They go back to school. They, spend the 2 weeks before Christmas break. He never saw this guy again. They go on Christmas break, which is like 3 months or whatever. They come back to school the next semester, the spring semester, even though it's still January, and still, hey, January's nice down here in, Charlottesville, but once you head over into Appalachian, man, January can be brutal. So they go back to school there in Huntington at Marshall University, mid-January, whenever the new semester starts. And everybody's saying, all their friends, did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? No, did you hear? Did we hear what? Here's the story they were told. One of their female friends, who was from Huntington, and of course stayed back for the holidays because that's where she would go. She didn't have to leave. She was from there. She was at a New Year's Eve party, and some guy, I'm going to say this the cleanest way I can think of to say it. He tried to have his way with her at this party against her will. Well, she screamed. A couple other guys heard her screaming. They came to her rescue. They kind of did a number on this guy, threw him out of the party, but they didn't stop there. They went to the police, and they reported what he had done. Well, the police went looking for him. They couldn't find him. A couple of days later, somebody was driving across the New River Gorge. They clearly saw somebody jump over the side of the bridge, reported it, and the body of this individual was found a couple of days later, a couple miles downstream of the New River, clearly deceased. And that's not the only, probably wasn't the first time that happened, and it sure hasn't been the last. That happens several times a year. I think it's something they try to underreport because they don't want it to become like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, which sees this happen about 30 times a year. The question, of course, that came next was, well, who was it? Who did this terrible thing to our friend and then, went on the lam, so to say, and then finally took his own life by jumping off the bridge? Turns out it was the guy that he had met at the Halloween party, only saw once, even though he clearly believed he saw him before he ever met him standing on the side of the bridge, clearly believed he saw him jumping off the bridge a little bit after having met him, but before this incident took place. So the old man asked me, he said, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I've stuck to it for 40-some years now. How do you explain that? What happened? And I told him, I said, sir, I don't know. And that's why I don't pick sides. I mean, I'm not going to say I don't believe you because, frankly, I do. And I'm certainly not going to act like I'm smart enough to say I know what it was you experienced because I don't. But I told him, I said, I'm a storyteller. I don't write all my stories. I tell some of them orally, sometimes on social media. Would it be okay if I told your story? He said, sure. I don't care. So there it is. And if any of you think you have an idea of what it was that he saw, was it an apparition? Was he seen into the future? Was it the different dimensions overlapping? Was it astral projection? Who knows? If you have any ideas, leave a comment. And I will end this video with this. Everything that happened was tragic as far as what the guy allegedly attempted to do. And it was tragic how he decided to deal with his issue. Sadly, approximately 800,000 people a year in the United States alone choose to take their own lives. This is a terrible number. If you are having problems, if you are having thoughts along these lines, please contact somebody. There's 800 numbers you can call. Google it, you'll find them. Reach out and ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And with this, we'll see you for more next time. Come on October and come on October nights. Catch you then.